Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's Specify and Practice session. With that, though, I do want to then hand it off to Dave and Lewis to get started with today's session. So, Dave and Lewis, I will let you introduce Mark and the topic for today and let you do your magic. So, Dave and Lewis, over to you.
Well, thanks, Matt. And how appropriate that you had fire engines in the background to start today's program. So this is Dave coming to you from South Jersey today, where we're going for record temperatures. We should be something over 90 degrees today. Pretty amazing considering the roller coaster that we've been on recently. Been as low as 30s just a couple days ago. So here we are. Lewis?
Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you from sunny Nashville. It's going to be in the upper 80s here too, and not too cloudy. And we're really thrilled. David made this arrangement to get Mark Tyrrell to come and talk to us about FM approvals and some of the. We're going to actually, after he goes through the slides, going to actually look at some of the things on the internet that are available to all of us to get additional information that we might need about various products and so forth. So Dave, why don't you introduce Mark and let's get going.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lewis. So Mark Tyrrell is coming to us today from FM Approvals. And see, I learned something myself in talking with Mark to begin with, that's one part of FM Global. Mark has over 30 years experience with the evaluation, testing, and approval of building materials. He began his career with FM Global back in 1987 and joined the approvals division in 93. So he's a graduate from University of Lowell, Massachusetts, College of Engineering, with postgraduate studies from Northeastern University. Licensed professional engineer in mechanical engineering in several states. And he's, by the looks of this cover photo, he's going to show us really nifty toys. Wish we could have some of those in our office, Mark. So here you are. Thanks very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to introduce several interesting topics. So yeah, I'm from Boston, or our office here in Norwood, Massachusetts, and we're very high temperatures. Yesterday was right around 90. Today, the same thing with thunderstorms this evening. So it's unusual, but it's welcome after a long, cold winter. Well, my name is Mark Tyrrell, and I invite you to record my email and my phone number. I take care of business development here for the FM Approvals Group for all of the Americas. And chances are, if you phone into FM Approvals and you mention a question about fire or roof or wind, you get connected to me. And I do a lot of customer service response and answer questions routinely.
Mark,
so yeah, yes,
I have a question, a personal question, right out of the bag. You say FM for the Americas. Does FMG operate in Canada?
Oh yes, absolutely. In fact, we're operating in over 100 countries right now. FM Global.
The G does stand for global, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. FMG, FM Global. They have customers and employees in over 100 countries. We have offices all over the world throughout Middle East, Asia, Europe, South America, and of course our home office here in Norwood, Massachusetts. And so they're absolutely a global insurance company, and I'll introduce shortly, it's actually the largest property insurance company in the world, and a little bit more about what we do and why we do it. Now, FM Approvals has sales engineers located in all of these offices that work with the local FM Global staff. And that's a great question, because one of the key things that FM Global recommends is the use of FM approved products. to help prevent property loss and reduce risk. And so rather than telling their customers all over the world to buy foreign products that have been gone through the FM approval process, our FM approvals engineers work with the local manufacturers to get them up and approved. And so local products can go to the local insureds and still satisfy the loss prevention that FM Global needs. So that's a great segue into my presentation. And who is FM Global? As I said, we're a property insurance company, been around for since 1835, and based in US, but absolutely multinational. And we provide property insurance and business interruption. So you can imagine like an iceberg, the property damage might be the visible part. You see the destroyed building or the wind or fire damage, but you don't see the business interruption. And that's a huge risk, and it can far exceed property damage. So FM Global is relying on their engineering expertise to help reduce risk and to keep damage to a minimum and to reduce or eliminate the business interruption that could occur from a loss. Just to give you an idea of the size of the company, there's billions of dollars in annual premiums and reserves, and we've got over 5,000 employees, and approximately 2,000 of the employees are actually engineers. So you could think of us as a multinational engineering firm. And why do we have so many engineers? Well, we actually engineer every one of our insured locations by doing a loss prevention study. And we do an audit and a study, and we determine risk, and we base our recommendations on that risk and minimizing it. We're in over 100 countries, over 130,000 locations, and you could say that every 1 out of 3 Fortune 1000 companies are insured by us. But many, many more follow our loss prevention expertise, our loss prevention data sheets, and making design studies and loss prevention recommendations and other guidance that we provide, and that's all free. And I'm going to show you introduce our loss prevention data sheets. And FM Global has a research campus. It's a world-renowned testing laboratory, and it's located in the state of Rhode Island. And they've built a learning center for training our employees and our insureds here in Norwood, Massachusetts, is state-of-the-art. And they've built another training complex in Singapore, which is where we have a very large Asia office. From an insurance standpoint, FM Global has a unique belief that most losses can be prevented. And so, of course, you can't prevent the wind and the rain and the fire, sometimes, but you can plan for them and design accordingly. And so we believe that loss can be prevented. We don't use actuaries, and we don't, we base our guidelines on engineering, on loss history, but on research and testing, which is what we do at our laboratory every day. We're a mutual company, so everyone who is a member or who purchases FM Global Insurance, they pay a premium. That premium is put into a bank account, and anyone who suffers a loss is able to take money out of that bank account. Should there be profit at the end of the year, everyone shares in that profit as a incentive to renew their policy. We provide engineering with our insurance, so we don't separate them. We always provide both. We can't do one and not the other. And we bet our engineering is going to help us prevent property loss. So even though we incur a much higher expense in providing the engineering with the insurance, we have a far, far lower than industry average loss history. And so we keep our customers safe and safer than others. And so we bet on our engineering as being the best way to go to help keep our customers in business. So the structure of the company is the FM Global Insurance Operations. We've got a team of PhDs and research scientists that study all kinds of different loss, from flood to fire to wind, and create test methods, recommendations, loss guidance. And our engineering group is the 2,000 engineers that visit our insured customers following the data and the guidelines that research creates. And way over on the left is the FM approvals group, and that's where I'm from. It's a small department, but it's one of the keys of FM Global's business model is the use of FM approved products. And then our research campus is a foundation. And so here's a quick overview of our research campus. It's located in West Gloucester, Rhode Island, on about 1,100 acres. There's a natural hazards lab that's got earthquake table, all kinds of different wind testing, hail damage testing, natural hazard. Hydraulics laboratory is our fire equipment testing, so you can find things like sprinklers and pipes and pumps being tested over there. The electrical lab is for the smoke and fire detectors and electronics that are used in hazardous locations. We've got a fire technology lab, and FM approvals uses just a small part of that for testing building materials for fire. And we've got a multimedia center, so when we have guests, they can see movies and demonstrations and go on a tour of the laboratory. So again, FM Global, very global insurance company, uses engineering. Now, FM approvals, again, that's where I work. We're a small group, about 200 people, with offices worldwide and employees worldwide. We're a nationally recognized testing laboratory, and we're also what's known in Europe as a notified body. And I put the CE reference there. In Europe, to sell product, including building materials and many other things, it has to carry a CE rating, which is a European conformity mark. And so we're the only laboratory outside of Europe that provides this service. And we do that because many of our customers wish to export, and we can give them a one-stop shop. In other words, they can come to us for FM approval, and we can bundle on or add on the CE mark. And they can work with one audit agency, that's us, and one testing laboratory to get really a worldwide recognition. We're a member of EOTA, which is an acronym for the European testing organizations that actually create standards, create test methods. And we've submitted several of our standards through the European process. And so basically they've been adopted in Europe as a national standard. So many FM standards are recognized around the world. What that means to a customer who obtains FM approval for their product is that the product is recognized around the world as meeting European standards and Asian standards, as well as American standards.
Say, Mark, if we're working internationally, any of the folks on the call today, how would we know which of the FM approval standards are recognized outside of North America or outside of the US?
Yeah, quite often they're specified, and I know that there's a list of we have a list of authorities that have accepted our standards. So, for example, we helped create the Chinese building code, and FM approval is mandated in the building code of China, and many Asian countries follow that code. Same in the Middle East, where we were involved in the Dubai building code, and so many of our standards are referenced there. So you may find reference to FM standards in these local codes. when you start working internationally and reviewing the local code requirements.
Speaking of which, one of our audience asked, does the ICC or NFPA accept FM ratings the same as UL ratings?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we do have a very strong relationship with those folks. They accredit us as a testing laboratory and as a quality agency that does the follow-up audits. And they accept our approval reports as towards their certification. So you could submit an FM report and meet the test requirements that they're looking for. And so we have a very good relationship with them. And some of our test methods have become ASTM standards and NFPA standards. So yeah, I would say we all work together in many ways. And you'll definitely find some overlap.
Thanks to Hassan Nagendra for that question.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, so there is a bit of an overlap. You might, of course, be familiar with UL and some of the other testing laboratories, and FM is quite different than, I would say, any other testing laboratory, where from a big picture, we do test and certify products, but we're quite unique in that we don't generate our income for our company by testing products. In fact, FM approvals is so small compared to FM Global. We're way to the right of the decimal point on their balance sheet. Basically, they consider us like a nonprofit. We pay our own way, but we're focused on testing and certifying products that benefit FM Global. So we exist for them, to serve them, our parent. And so we only approve products that promote property loss prevention. I mentioned a little bit earlier in a slide that we work with electrical equipment and in a limited scope, and we work with fire protection equipment. So we approve pumps and piping and sprinklers, of course, anything that gets water from a source to a fire along the way. And also building materials. So I work with the building materials group. Our specialty includes roofing, any kind of roofing, walls, the envelope of a building, and many other types of building materials. And I'll introduce a few more later that might be a little bit unusual for you. FM Approvals does develop and publish their own approval standards. Now, before we go to all the work of creating a brand new test method, we're going to canvass worldwide. What are the others doing, and does it meet our needs, which are very different than building codes. For example, building codes are often, they're focused on life safety. So let's get the people out, but then the building can burn down or blow away, and that's acceptable. What we're trying to do is preserve the property, so to prevent a fire from spreading or a wind from damaging a building. So our focus is on property loss prevention. So in many ways, when you compare FM standards to others, you could say, okay, they far exceed code because their test requirements are far stronger, their requirements tend to be higher, and that's kind of generally true. So we do publish our own standards, and we've got, 50,000 products approved, and we're going to have a look at those lists of approved products, which are resources that are free to use and they're online. One's called the Approval Guide, and the other is called RoofNav. Again, online, free to use, and I'll introduce them. We'll take a look at them. The FM approval mark is the diamond with the word approved, and there's a variation below that with the diamond, with the triangle and the FM. That's like a cast on or stamped on mark as opposed to a sticker. We also offer CE, which I mentioned earlier, and ISO 9000. These are much smaller marks or add-ons, if you will, where we can bundle audits and fees. Yeah, so FM approvals has a value proposition which says that products marked approved have undergone the most rigorous testing and meet the highest standards for quality, integrity, performance. We do approve, of course, I mentioned the roofing and the siding, all kinds of exposed installations. It could be on walls, on ceilings, on pipes, ducts, any kind of insulation material. We are able to test and approve that. We approve things like heat and smoke vents, explosion venting construction, fire protective coatings, a whole number of them, used in different ways for steel, for combustibles, cables. And we do fire endurance rated products like fire stops and fire doors. Most of our fire testing is reaction to fire and measures fire propagation, however, as opposed to fire endurance. We do test for windstorm resistant doors, windows, etc., walls. So we're concerned about natural hazard resistance. And things like cooling towers, which are often outside of a building or maybe on the roof, we approve those. Air handling and ducts, so any kind of smoke removal, fume removal, clean room components, we approve those. And things like plastic pallets, which are not part of a building, but we approve them as equivalent to wood. And we know how to recommend and design sprinkler systems to protect against the fire spread from wood pallets that are idle or stored and in racks. And so we test plastic pallets to make sure that they can be considered equivalent. And we actually approve people. So fire stop contractors are expert contractors that do a very important job, and that is to install fire stopping. And we've got references throughout our data sheets that buildings need to be fire stopped, and any hourly rated walls need to be, walls, ceilings, etc. elements need to be fire stopped. And so we started approving people about 10 years ago. We've got over 100 fire stop contractors approved now worldwide.
Hey, Mark, is the fire stop approval, is that for the business entity or is that actually for the individual mechanics?
Well, it's both. The way that the fire stop contractor program works is that we require the entity, the fire stop company, to have written quality manual, written instructions that meet our requirements. We ask them to address certain topics, and then we will audit their offices and a job site that's nearby so that we can get an idea of what they're doing in their office and designing and selecting appropriate fire stop systems, and then how they transmit that to the field, how they're installing them and checking them, and so it's a whole program. And a very important third part of that is that someone who is responsible for fire stop selection has to go through a 3-hour test that we give them. It's like an engineering test, and it's general overview or general questions, and then a 2-hour part with design selection. So we're going to give them actual designs and ask them technical questions, and they have to demonstrate their understanding, knowledge, and ability. So it's become quite a popular approval.
I can understand why, but as a follow-on, FCIA has a certification program also. That's the Fire Stop Contractors International.
Oh yeah, and we partnered with them to create our program so that it's one and the same. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's one and the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And again, just finishing this slide, we also do approve other products, the hydraulics or fire protection product, and then the electrical equipment. We make it simple for a customer to obtain approval. We speak to them, and normally I speak to them because I take care of the business development. But once we get their formal request, we give them a proposal. They go through the testing. We issue an approval report. They begin marking the product as FM approved. And the one thing that is important is that the approval is valid indefinitely. It does not expire. So it's an investment, and a lot of manufacturers are interested in that, the benefits of that investment. What we do is follow up factory audits, and we have an audit team that globally that does follow-up audits, and they verify the products are made the same way as when they were tested. And if that is found to be correct, then we expect the same performance. And so that's why the approval is valid indefinitely and does not require retesting every couple of years. But we do obtain proprietary information. So we're going to ask the customer to tell us all their formulations, testing protocols, acceptance criteria. We have non-disclosure agreements and secrecy agreements, and everything is kept strictly confidential. But basically, they tell us, their technical details, and we confirm. Once a customer has been approved, you'll find approved products on these two websites. RoofNav.com is everything regarding roofing, and it's actually everything that FM Global publishes about roofing in one place. RoofNav.com. And ApprovalGuide.com is basically everything other than roofing that we have approved. It can be found there. And so let's go take a look at those, as well as some other resources just after this presentation. Here's a little break. It's a fire test that we do called the ASTM E108. And this is a spread of flame fire test. And I'd have to call that a failure, although it's a great picture. The client is sulking and the engineer is very attentive. So that's daily at our testing laboratory. Obtaining FM approval, one of the things it can do is provide access to global markets. So because FM approval is known and recognized around the world, there's a global market for FM approved products. So if you, as a manufacturer, if you export, you can find customers anywhere you are. It could be a way to demonstrate or differentiation, give you a competitive advantage. So you could say, well, we meet everything that they do, but we've stepped up and obtained approval, and here's why it's different, and it could provide an advantage. But the primary benefit could be access to the FM Global insureds. Now, those 130,000 customers all over the world are being told to use approved products and follow the FM Global data sheets. And so they're often, FM approved products are often written into specs or design criteria. Insureds, owners, their representatives are often looking for approved products. And here's where you get an awful lot of overlap, where a lot of design professionals are going to seek FM standards, FM approved products, even though they're not currently insured by FM Global. They might seek to be insured at a later date, or just want to build to these standards because they're very strong. Yeah, there's an awful lot of call for FM approved products when they're not actually an insured. So the 1 out of 3 of the Fortune 1000, that's at a minimum. It could be much higher. Now the FM Global engineers, I alluded to this, but just to confirm, they perform the inspections of the insured locations, and they identify risk and identify opportunities to reduce the risk of property loss and business interruption. So they're going to follow data sheets and make their audits and recommend the use of approved products. The recommendation to use approved products is throughout our data sheets. It's almost in every single one, where it's going to describe a risk and provide a solution. And that solution is often used in an approved product. And so that is an overview of who we are and why we do what we do. what I'd like to do is take you over to the internet and introduce a couple of different resources.
So while you're getting that teed up, Mark, just to ask, because many of the folks that are on this call today are working on the design or construction side. And as a design team, we might be dealing with FM during the design process, submitting for review and approval, but we're dealing with what I think is coming back is your FM global engineers and their comments to offer suggestions for risk reduction.
That's right. That's the way that it's often done, is that there's a project that's, and it could be at the very earliest stages, the conception stage or design stage, but there's eventually contact to the local FM global office. And there's a plan review department that would review any plans and provide their input for an FM insured location. You can go to FM Global and find the local office and contact them and speak to plan review. They'll have you send in documentation and review that. Because they're frequently out at the insured location, they usually catch wind, like there's a project coming up. And so that's normally information that we try to get as early as we can so that we can encourage a submittal of information. We can help, with the recommendations, just to help, not slow any projects down, provide our guidance as quickly, as early as possible.
Is there some way for us as designers or as specifiers to know who the FM insureds are? Because I know myself, I have asked some of our clients about the owner's insurer, and it's something that's not always known.
That's right. It's something that we don't publish as far as a list of insureds, but it is something that normally it has to be from the local, from the project side to find out, is this an insured facility? And if so, we need to get FM involved. And it's often, I'm not sure if it's, if the attendees find that different projects, it happens differently, where FM contacts them or they contact FM, between speaking to the owner and somehow determining that it's a FM location. It seems to eventually work its way out, maybe not as smoothly as possible, but oftentimes it's something that I guess the designer would find out, does this need to comply with FM Global guidelines, and as early as possible, I hope. I'm not really sure actually how that all happens, because I'm in the approvals group, but that's what I believe.
Okay, thanks.
I hope there's some comments that can help clarify that.
Maybe we can ask our listeners, they can just raise their hand for us. How many of you actually are aware who the owner's insurer is near the start of a design project? Just raise your hand if you are aware early in a project.
Yeah, and I would leave it to them to provide some guidance, because it's really, I just don't have that expertise.
Yeah, of the folks that are responding here, it's a small percentage.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to improve that, but any comments along those lines, I could certainly try to pass along to FM Global side, and we just want to make that communication better.
Okay, well, thanks for that offer. All right, now I've interrupted you enough.
Well, thank you for the questions. So we're looking at the website approvalguide.com, and I had it called up already, but it's just a simple create a free account and then use your email and password to log in. So once you've logged in, this is the home page. And the 3 categories of approval that we offer include fire protection, electrical equipment, and building materials. So I work with the building materials group, and so I navigated to building materials. And you'll see that if I click here and see roofing, it's going to tell me to go see RoofNav. And but we've got approval for just about everything else here. And so, for example, the exterior roofing, siding is here, and it's going to describe all the different approved products for. Here's a protected metal, heat and smoke vents. Here's walls and ceilings. So we've got interior materials, and we've got exterior materials for walls, exterior walls. Fire protective coatings, all the different categories that I mentioned earlier. We've got explosion venting systems. We've got fire stop systems, and there's a tremendous number of them, etc. So let's see, fire doors, windstorm resistant construction. We've got cooling towers, air handling, both duct and materials, chimney and flue liners, pipe and duct insulation, fire stop contractors that I mentioned earlier, flood abatement equipment. We've got pop-up curbs and all kinds of different flood abatement equipment. It's a brand new standard and a high priority for FM Global. Skylights that are even that are for roofing, they're actually here because RoofNav is limited to basically the roof assemblies themselves. Rack storage systems, and we've even got something here, wafer carriers. So clean room is a big insured type of insured for us, clean rooms.
Mark, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah. Yes, please.
One is Elias Saltz, who actually is a Conspectus employee in Chicago, says it doesn't look like the approval guide is organized by master format number unless there's another way to sort information.
Yeah, that's a project that has been proposed and we have not implemented, but that's a wonderful suggestion, and it would be very helpful to the design community to do that. And so thank you very much for reinforcing that.
Or because so many of your things are talking about assemblies of multiple products, uniformat might be even better, so that you have exterior walls are in element B and interior products are in element C and so forth. So that's something else to look at. And then
one of the things, oh, pardon me. Yeah.
No, go finish your thought, and then I have another comment.
My thought was that one of the things that was added recently was that you'll see class numbers, and what these numbers refer to is the approval standard that was used to approve the product. So what we were finding is a lot of specifications said the wall assembly must be FM approved in accordance with FM 4882. And we would constantly get calls saying, what is 4882? And how can I find products that meet 4882? It was written in the specification. And so we added some specification description here. So if I click on the plus sign and I can click down here for 4882, and again, the number refers to an approval standard which describes the test and acceptance criteria for a product. So I'm going to click on products that meet class 4882. We've got all of these magnifying glass icons open up a search window where you can search by company name or by type of wall or ceiling and country of manufacturer. So you can search, or you can just click on the button and it will open them all up. Class 4882 is interior finish materials for smoke-sensitive occupancies, like pharmaceutical, clean room, hospital, things like this, where smoke it could be a risk. So they have approval category that if a product is exposed to fire, it will not burn and smoke.
We have a comment from the floors. Steve Perozzi suggests that would you please also consider making the fire stop assemblies a little easier to search using filters and so forth?
That's right. There's a lot of them. Nowhere near as many as UL, pardon me. But if you come down and look at the fire stop, there are a few search tools, and they may not have seen these before. But here's the category for fire stop, and if I click on the icon here, there are some search tools, very limited. We don't have a nice number letter system that describes them like other directories, but there are some search tools. I'm getting a loading. Okay, there it goes. So you can search by products by all of these drop downs. For example, if you wanted to select manufacturer or a category, if you're looking for a joint or a penetration seal, if you know the number, you can go right to it. Or if you have a rating, you need a 1 hour rated penetration seal, for example, you could go right there for a floor or for a wall. And what kind of penetration are you seeking? Perhaps a conduit, again, plastic pipe, all of the different choices are there. What it's going to do is query the database and find matching systems. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if they were able to use this or if it was helpful. It is different than other directories, and we're much smaller. We're probably a tenth of the size of other directories. But hopefully with these tools, if they weren't aware of them, it might assist them. It's all we have for right now, but.
Mr. Perozzi says, thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
I guess he was previously unaware of that, so we all learned something.
Yeah, it's not intuitive. It's not these websites are not intuitive. But in the sake of time, I'm going to skip over to RoofNav. I just want to give a very introductory, and if I'm invited back and there's interest, I'd be very happy to speak in more detail. What I'm going to do now is go to the RoofNav website. And again, this is free to use, where you would visit www.roofnav.com, create a free account, and this account will allow you to have your own web page here and enter RoofNav. And what RoofNav is everything that FM publishes about roofing. And so you can see the different tabs here. We have a product search where you could look up a product, and if you knew the company or the trade name, you could search there. You could select a category. So I want to look up a cover, a subcategory. Maybe I'm interested in single ply covers that have a material type, let's say TPO. Show me every product that is a single ply TPO, and you can find them here. You can organize these by trade name or by company name. You put them in order from A to Z or Z to A. You can search for products by, let's see, if you click on this company lookup, you can search by country. So you could say, well, I have a customer over in I don't know.
Go back to the Maldives. David and I actually have a project there.
Oh, is that right? This is going to list manufacturers' headquarters, not necessarily manufacturing site, but it's where the customer is from. So it can be a little bit. I'm almost positive we don't have anyone there. So I know that we certainly have engineers and and projects there. So while we don't have any local manufacturers, but but you'll find, for example, South Korea, and there's a list of those that are headquartered or based, and quite often these have manufacturing there. You might find a company based in America, but they have factory in South America and in Europe and in Asia, for example. But it's a company lookup as opposed to like a corporate address, if you will. So you can look up products in product search, but assembly search is probably the most important, where you're trying to find a RoofNav number that describes a roof assembly. So keep in mind, RoofNav has millions and millions of roof assembly combinations, and this is a tool that will help narrow down the number of searches, the number of matches based on your search. So it's a filter, and you want to find specific roof assemblies that meet your criteria. So you could say, you could use any of these two buttons, classifications or specifications, to find your assembly. Now let's just start out with a single ply roof on steel deck. Now, without saying anything more, let's just check our search results. And I'm not surprised we have over 59,000 matching assemblies. So let's be a little bit more specific and say we're looking for a new roof that meets a wind rating of equal to a 60 PSF. As we put in more and more details, we're going to begin noticing a reduction in matches. So here we've dropped it to 15,000. Now on specifications, I can actually add products or physical properties to my search. So I could say, well, I'm really looking for a TPO single ply. What you do is you select and you click and you drag, and you create a query on this right-hand side. So you click on the product, and I'm not going to specify a manufacturer yet, but I'm going to say, show me a TPO roof assembly. Save. We went from 15,000 down to 4,000. And again, as I get more and more specific, I'm looking for a roof that has a cover board and a board stock. So I need, let's say, a gypsum. And I'm just searching very generically by material type as opposed to a manufacturer. And here I'm looking for, let's say, a polyiso. And again, just to quickly demonstrate, you get a refined search. Every time you add more detail, it's searching those millions of assemblies, and it's bringing back the ones that match your search criteria that you specify, both on specifications and on classifications. And I could be very specific and say I'm looking for let's see, GAF. I think they make a TPO. And then click search. And so that number will drop significantly because now we're excluding everyone, those 100 and something manufacturers for one, and we found 111. So the idea is to get down to a handful. I'm saying maybe a 10 or less. You can find an assembly that matches your requirements. Now, just to demonstrate what does an assembly look like, I'll click on one, but I already know some details about it. I know the hail rating is a 1 in 12 slope maximum. It's got a Class A exterior fire rating. I said only show me 60, so this will all be 60. It has an SH for hail, that's severe hail rating. I'll go ahead and click on the assembly. Every assembly in RoofNav has a unique number. It will never change. This is the assembly properties. So this is for new construction. It's a mechanically attached cover on a steel deck. It meets these ratings over on the right: slope, wind, and that's pounds per square foot for field of the roof, Class A fire, severe hail. And this is what the assembly looks like from a cutaway view, if you will. We start out with the cover on top, and you can have any of these different products. Now, I said, show me an assembly that had a GAF membrane. Why am I getting Flex and Roofing Products International, Tremco, etc.? Well, that's because all of those products share the identical construction and ratings. And so RoofNav tries to give you as many options as possible. You've got a hot air weld, and that's shared for all of these. You've got a securement from the cover down to the deck. You've got a choice of a TrueFast, a GAF, or a Tremco fastener. If I click on View, it's going to tell me the contributory area. Here we have 12-foot spacing between rows. Pardon me, whatever, I misspoke. 114-inch spacing and 12 inches within those rows. So we know how it's secured. Yeah.
Mark, Dave
Yes.
Metzger asked,
Oh, yeah.
does RoofNav include inverted roof assemblies where the
yes.
insulation
Yeah,
is on
thank
top
you.
of the roofing member?
We do have approvals for inverted roof. What we don't have approvals for is ballasted roof. And the reason why we don't have ballasted approvals is not that we don't accept them or use them on many of our projects. It's because we can't test them. You see, the acceptance criteria is any separation of any of the components. For example, any breakage, any separation, any disconnect between the products. So the membrane is held down with ballast as opposed to being fixed or adhered. And so by definition, we can't test it. But we do have guidelines in our data sheets for ballasted roofs. Now, specifically for inverted roofs, we do approve them. However, the insulation over the roof has to be adhered to the components below. So the entire assembly is totally adhered, or secured, but it is approved, and we could do a search for an inverted roof.
So, and along that same line, Mark, with the advent of blue roofs now, are you able to approve roofs that are designed to contain and hold water?
We do have green roofs, which have trays of succulents on the roof surface.
Okay, no, the one, right, the vegetated roofs or the green roofs.
Yes.
I'm asking about blue roofs that are designed
Blue
to
roofs,
retain
okay.
water.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that, so it might be something that some of our technical experts are looking into, and I don't have an answer, but I would like to get one for you. I'm curious myself.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
we're finding that's being used as a water detention method to avoid overloading storm sewers.
I see. I'll look into that further, and yeah.
Back in the 60s and 70s, they used to be called water ballasted roofs.
Wow. I don't know if it's something addressed in our data sheets, but we could certainly have a look at that as well, if time permitting.
Well, we're just about out of time.
I know we're just about out of time. Thank you everyone for your patience. The insulation is shown here. I said, show me an assembly that has an insulation. Now here you'll find all different kinds of insulations, from perlite to ISO to flat tapered, from all different companies. So any of those would meet the approval rating and be acceptable. We've got a thermal barrier, which is optional, so it can be waived. But if you did want to use it, we've got a choice of perlite or gypsum dense deck. Some steel deck assemblies, and I say assembly because we specify the securement and then the structure, which is steel. So if this assembly was what you want to use for your project, you could add a scenario. And what that does is basically saves your assembly from your search, and it saves it on My Projects. So it basically creates and saves a file for you, so that it's always there. You don't have to go back to the assembly search and find it. Ratings calculator is a way to determine what as the design professional, what do I need to specify for this project as far as wind, uplift, pressure? You could calculate that using the ratings calculator. And what the ratings calculator does is you enter the wind speed based on FM maps, some variables about the building, height, width, length of the roof, and some other geometry, and then it will calculate for you the field wind uplift pressure, the actual pressure, and then it will multiply it by a safety factor of 2 and round up to the next level of approval. And that would be the rating that would be used. So for example, if you calculate a 35 PSF field pressure, RoofNav would then tell you to multiply it by 2 and then round up, and that would be 70, and then the next level of approval is 75. So it will tell you you need to use a class 75 roof for the field area of your project. And then it will tell you modify that field of roof assembly for use in the perimeters and corners, and it will tell you to go to one of the FM Global data sheets and follow those guidelines. And so data sheets are under reference materials. FM Global data sheets, the latest version, anything that talks about roofing is shown here under reference materials. So 129 is the data sheet that tells you how to modify the roof for use in the corners and the perimeters. Now, I know that we're just at our 1 hour mark, so I'd like to conclude by offering again my contact information. Should anyone have a project or any questions about FM approval, it's my pleasure to speak to you offline and to answer your questions. And it's my well, I thank you all very much. It's my pleasure to speak to you today and to introduce our company and some of our resources to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate the fact that you took time to join us today, and I found the program quite informational, so I'm sure the rest of our listeners did as well. And if our listeners would like to have Mark back at some future point, I've already talked to Mark. There are several programs that he could present about FM and FM Global, so there may be a lot more to learn from him. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining.